Alright chaps, this is episode 20 of Project SeaCAT, and today we're going to be designing memories. Basically, for memories we want to store inputs and outputs, right? That's the key of what a memory is. It's something that you perceived, or it's something that you did. So to start out, we have a collection of senses, and a sense is just a sense, it could be anything. And inputs are received via the senses. So an example of this would be hearing, that's an input. So inputs I'm representing with just a blue triangle. Outputs are also sent via senses. So this would be like speaking. I've got those as a dark blue triangle. And then you can also have a sense which is both an input and an output. So data is sent or received via these senses, but the data isn't stored on the sense itself. So we have another collection here, which is data. And data I'm just representing as zeros and ones, keeps it simple. That might be more complex in the future, or everything might be represented as zeros and ones. I haven't decided on that yet. It's not too big a deal from a conceptual standpoint. And then a memory is a sense plus the data that was received on that sense. So if I go back to my example from last episode, which is a switch, then an example would be an input, which would be, let's say, the light switch, right? You could, when that switch was turned on, we would have a new collection, which was memories, and in there we would take a sense, plus we would take the data, and we would store it as like a new grouping, I guess. It'd be like a mapping. It'd say this memory is this sense plus this bit of data. This is actually not entirely accurate, because if you were just having zeros and ones, you might use the same data for different senses. So the light bulb, which you would be letting your AI control, would have a 0 and 1, and the switch that you're using to control it would have a 0 and 1. And the reason that would be the same is so that in the future, once you start defining concepts, then it can start to understand that on, if you were to type like light on, you would want it to understand that on meant 1 and off meant 0. You might not always want that to be the case, so that's kind of why I've got this represented here, because on might be 0 for some things, but in general the concept is sound, that you're going to be able to use the same data on different senses. So memories will end up being an input with a 1, an output with a 0, an input output with a 0, or any of those combinations, It could be an input output with a 1, could be an output with a 1, but yeah, for simplicity's sake, I've just got that. So this is kind of the core 3 kind of databases that I will be having for storing a memory when you receive it. So just the very, very basic memory storage. These will initially be stored in sensory memory, but I'm going to do another video on the 3 different types of memory later on, so I'll just kind of leave that for now, and we can go on to what we do with these memories and how they actually become useful. So we've got our senses, we've got our memories. ideally we want to be able to group our memories into experiences, right? But to do that, we need something that will define what an experience actually is, because if you just keep collecting memories, how do you know how to partition them and say, right, these are all related, these are all related, you know? You can't just keep collecting memories. So my solution to this is to create a feedback sense. So it's just another sense, but it is going to be used for feedback. So to let the AI know whether it's done something right or it's done something wrong. Not necessarily whether it's done it, but just so that it can associate good or bad with a given set of memories. So we have a new collection here, which is the feedback collection. And in here, we're just going to put that this new sense, sorry, got a bit of a sore throat. This new sense, when it's got a 1, that is feedback, right? So whenever feedback is received, we want to take all the memories that we currently have in our, probably in our short-term memory, maybe in our sensory memory, depends, and we want to store them as a group. So let's say we received 1 on our input sense, so someone turned on the light switch. And we also received a 1, or we sent a 1, either way, on our input output sense, which would actually be the bulb itself, because the human could turn on the bulb or we could turn on the bulb. So we've received both of these. Currently we're just like, yeah, whatever, they've both happened. But then once we receive our feedback sense, we go, right, okay, this is either good or bad. Let's assume that 1 is good. It doesn't matter though for the context of this. So once it receives this, it will say, right, everything I've got in my memory, we're going to group it. And that is going to be an experience. And we will store these in another collection called experiences. So over time, these will build up and we'll be able to see, right, okay, when this happened, it was good. Maybe when this happened, it was bad. Maybe, see, I'm not sure about once you start throwing memories away, because the short-term memory is going to be on a timer basically. So it'll throw away things once they're over 30 seconds old, let's say, just as an example. So I guess if something is thrown away, we wouldn't store it as an experience. Possible that we might store it as an experience with 0 feedback. But then you get into the question of, are you deleting stuff in 30-second chunks, or is each individual thing getting deleted after it's been there for 30 seconds? That's a bit more complex, so probably we wouldn't care about them because we'd not received any feedback, so we don't actually care about it. But this is the basics. I mean, once you have this, you can start learning from your past experiences. So if someone turned on 1, the AI could go into its experience bank and it could say, right, I've got an input of 1. I know that an input of 1 gets me good feedback, but only if the input output is set to 1. So then because it's an input and an output, it can turn it on. So then it could turn that on. Then you could reward it again, and it would have another experience saying, right, okay, when I get 1 and I turn it on, not the other person turns it on, I get good feedback as well. So that's the basics of how to make my AI react to inputs based on feedback. Because if it did something like, let's say you put in a 1 and it put a 0 into here because it didn't know any better, you could give it negative feedback, and then next time you received a 1, it would say, well, I got negative feedback when I put a 0 in there, so I'm not going to do it, you know? Or if it turned it on without you asking, then it would just be this section here, and it would know, okay, don't do that, because if I do that with no prompting, I'm going to get negative feedback. And that's the gist of that. That, I think, is how to store the different kind of concepts behind memories in a way that they can be utilized to make decisions. In the future, I'll do a video which will tie this stuff into my concept stuff, because ideally we don't want it to be making decisions based on rigid data coming in from sensors. So that's where we will start merging concepts together, as I showed in episode 19, where you can start creating links between different data types from different sensors so that it can understand that it doesn't necessarily need to receive one on its input, because that will become a new concept, and that could be replaced by like a text input saying on, and it would have created the link, so it would know text input saying on is the same as it receiving 1, and all that stuff will kind of merge together with this stuff to make something that will hopefully be pretty fluid. But this is just a short video explaining how I'm kind of storing my data. I'm going to try and actually get back to coding on this stuff again. I'm going to rewrite it all from scratch just because I like doing that. So I might do a video with that stuff tomorrow. We'll see. I'm not going to make any promises because I've got some other stuff I need to do as well. But for now, I think that's it. So catch you later, guys.